William and Mary taking on Charlotte, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff on Friday, September 2nd, 2022. We are now done with the Thursday slate. We are moving into Friday. So now we're covering the Friday games. And even though there's no number for this William and Mary Charlotte game, I think Charlotte's actually going to have a tough time covering when that line comes out. Probably another one of those games where that number is going to be maybe a little bit too high. Charlotte did finish their season last year on a 4-game skid, not playing great football, and they also dropped 6 out of their final 7 as well. Now, they have one of the worst defenses in Division I. These guys allowed 33 points or more in 9 out of their last 10 ball games. They're also squaring off against a William and Mary team who, they're certainly not as good talent-wise, but the Tribe did play some really tough defense in spots last year. They allowed 24 points or less in 5 out of their last 7 ball games. I think they can be competitive. They might not even be competitive, but I think they can be competitive enough with regard to the number that's released. So I'm more likely, I'm kind of inclined here to lead toward the Tribe of William and Mary catching the points. All right, next game, Western Michigan taking on Michigan State, 7 o'clock Friday. Michigan State's minus 22, totals 54. Heavy line movement towards Sparty in this one. 4-point move already toward Michigan State. Now, the Spartans covered a whole bunch of games last season. They finished the year 8-2 against the number in their final 10. They covered against the likes of Pitt, Penn State, and Michigan. And even though they lost leading rusher Kenneth Walker, they still have quarterback Peyton Thorne, who threw for over 3,200 yards last year and 27 touchdowns. Now, he's also got favorite target Jaden Reed back, who's coming off a 1,000-yard season. Reed had 10 touchdown catches in 2021 as well. Now, Sparty's taking on a Western Michigan squad who failed to cover in 6 out of their last 9. And they certainly need some work on defense, need a little help. They allowed 24 points or more in 5 out of their last 7 outings. Maybe they can get some of those guys from Grand Valley State or something like that. Those are some pretty bad numbers. But anyway, total-wise, no surprise here. The Broncos went 6-2 to the over in their last 8 outings. Overs against the likes of Nevada, Northern Illinois, and Akron. Meanwhile, Michigan State saw 4 out of their last 6 get over the total themselves. Overs against the likes of Penn State, Maryland, and Purdue. I'm going to lean toward Michigan State minus 22 and the over 54 in the chalky lean. Next matchup, I know a lot of you bettors out there remember this matchup from a few years ago, but it is going to be Virginia Tech taking on Old Dominion, 7 o'clock Friday. Pretty short number here. Virginia Tech's just minus 8, totals 49.5. Steady two-way action on the side and the total in this one. Not a lot of movement. And if you like the Monarchs of ODU, they're plus 260 for an upset win. So a lot of bettors still remember that. We got a long memory. But anyway, Old Dominion, they did finish the season last year fairly strong, played some good football. That said, though, they did suffer a double-digit loss to Tulsa in their bowl game. They scored just 17 points in that contest, not overly competitive offensively. And matter of fact, this ODU offense was held to 24 points or less in 7 out of their final 10 ball games of 2021. So might have a problem moving the football. And they're taking on a Hokie team who is capable of playing some tough defense, even though they struggled in certain spots last season. Dax Hollifield had 92 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and a pick. Meanwhile, Nasir Peoples was second on the team in tackles with 88. Now, the Hokies did get wins last year against the likes of Virginia, Duke, and Georgia Tech. When it comes to total, the Hokies did see 3 out of their last 4 ball games get over the line. Meanwhile, ODU saw overs against the likes of Charlotte, FIU, and UTEP last year. I'm going to lean toward Virginia Tech minus 8 over 49.5. Next matchup, Eastern Kentucky taking on Eastern Michigan, 7 o'clock Friday night. No number for this game yet. But despite tanking in the bowl game last year, Eastern Michigan did win games against the likes of Western Michigan, Toledo, and Bowling Green. They also played some solid defense in several of their games last year. Jose Ramirez led the charge with 6.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. Meanwhile, Tariq Spades was the team leader in tackles with 89. Now, on the offensive end, top receiver Hassan Beydoun, he returns for his senior year. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season where he also scored 4 times. Kind of one of those receivers that reminds you of a Wes Welker, Danny Amendola type, kind of a Julian Edelman, a scat guy. But anyway, they're taking on an Eastern Kentucky team whose defense really collapsed down the home stretch last year. The Colonels allowed 30 points a game in their final 5 ball games. They also suffered losses to the likes of Sam Houston State, Stephen F. Austin, and Indiana State. If you never heard of those schools, no shame in that. Those were really small schools. So I'm going to lean toward the Eastern Michigan Eagles getting the job done against the number. All right, next ball game could be competitive. Talking about Temple taking on Duke, 7:30 Friday evening. Duke's -7, totals 52. 1.5 point fade of the Blue Devils in this one. Fade of the Blue Devils. Now, Duke has lost their last 8 straight as a program. They failed to cover 7 times during that stretch. And when it comes to offensive production or lack thereof, these guys couldn't bust through a wet paper bag. They averaged only 14 points a game in their last 8 contests. Now, on the defensive end, well, they gave up 31 points or more in all of those contests I just mentioned. They're taking on a Temple squad who, make no mistake, they did have a down year last season. And that said, though, they did have a huge win over Memphis where they scored 34 points. The Owls were able to score 12 rushing touchdowns on the ground last year as well. When it comes to the total, Temple saw unders recently against the likes of Houston, ECU, and UCF. That's East Carolina and Central Florida, by the way. Meanwhile, Duke, on the other side, they saw 5 out of their final 8 games last year fall under the line. I think Temple can keep it within a score. Give me the Owls +7, under 52. Next matchup, some more Big Ten action. I'm talking about Illinois taking on Indiana, 8 o'clock East. Indiana's -3, totals 46.5. 2-point move toward the under in this one. And even though the Hoosiers are favored, they really had a tough time stopping the Big Ten last year. They allowed over 35 points a game in their last 8 conference matchups. They also failed to cover the point spread in 9 out of their last 10 games. They're taking on an Illinois squad who destroyed Wyoming in the season opener last week. The Illini rushed for 260 yards, and they were led by running back Chase Brown. The junior ran 19 times for 151 yards and 2 scores. And I don't know why, but it feels like Chase Brown's been there forever. I know it's just his, junior season, but Chase Brown has been running the football a lot for Illinois. At least he's been on the field a lot. Now, Brown also had a receiving touchdown in the blowout win. The reason why I remember that, too, is because my old boss from back in the day, his son was named Chase Brown. So we used to always joke about Chase Brown scoring a bunch of TDs. But anyway, defensively, Illinois, they had a dominating effort last week, holding Wyoming to just 6 points. This Illini secondary allowed only 30 passing yards as Wyoming completed only 25% of their passes. Now, D-back Jartavius Martin, he led the D with 3 PBUs and 7 tackles. When it comes to the total, Illinois did see 7 out of their last 10 outings dating back to last year fall under the number. Meanwhile, Indiana saw unders last season against the likes of Rutgers, Michigan, and Michigan State. I'm going to lean toward Illinois +3, keeping this one close, and the under 46.5. Next game, Tennessee Tech, taking on Kansas, 8 o'clock Friday. Game's off the board. As bad as this Kansas program is, they actually had some things to build off of from the second half of the season last year. They covered the point spread in their last 3 straight, believe it or not, and they actually garnered an outright victory over Texas. That was a wild one. That was an overtime game. And out of those 3 covers I just mentioned, the Jayhawks averaged 38 points a game offensively, believe it or not. Now, running back Devin Neal, he gained 4.5 yards a carry, and he also scored 8 times on the ground last year. Now, Kansas is taking on a Tennessee Tech program who lost to the likes of Austin Peay, Tennessee Martin, and Tennessee State. And matter of fact, this Golden Eagle defense, this Golden Eagle offense scored just 12 points a game on average in those losses. So I'm going to lean toward Kansas covering the number, whatever that thing opens up at. All right, more Friday action. TCU, Colorado, 10 o'clock Friday night. TCU's minus 14, totals 55.5. Massive line move toward the Horned Frogs in this one. And for a team laying 2 touchdowns on the road, TCU, they really had a tough time covering last season. They failed to cover in their final 3 ball games, and they also went 2-8 against the spread in their last 10. And aside from a struggling offensive unit, the Horned Frogs really couldn't stop a JUCO team last year. Their defense gave up nearly 39 points a game in their last 10 outings. They're also facing a Buffs team who did a real nice job covering the number down the home stretch last year. Colorado went 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games. And that includes outright victories over the likes of Washington and Oregon State. The leading tackler, Isaiah Lewis, he had 68 tackles along with a couple of picks. When it comes to the total, 4 out of Colorado's last 7 fell under the number. While TCU saw unders against the likes of Kansas, K-State, and West Virginia, I'm going to lean toward Colorado plus 14, keeping this one close, and the under 55 and a hook.